Usually when we talk about a medical diagnosis,
Mm.
there's this underlying expectation of precision, right?
Yeah.
Like it feels kind of like engineering.
Yeah, totally. Very mechanical.
Right. You break your arm, the x-ray shows that jagged white line, and the doctor just points at the film and says, there it is. That's the problem.
Exactly. You cast it, you wait your 6 weeks, and the bone knits itself back together. It's a
Hmm.
very linear, highly categorizable
Why
process.
do I crave that kind of binary simplicity, I think?
Oh, absolutely. Broken or not broken, sick or cured. It provides a roadmap that makes the whole recovery process feel predictable, both for the patient and, for the people trying to care for them.
But then, and this is where things get really complicated, you step into the world of neurodevelopment, complex family dynamics, trauma,
Mhm.
and, well, deep-seated codependency.
And suddenly that x-ray machine is just utterly useless.
Literally useless. We're looking at a diagnostic landscape that is murky, constantly shifting, and largely invisible. There are no clean breaks and definitely no simple casts.
No, not at all.
And that is exactly the terrain we are navigating today. So welcome to the deep dive. Today's focus is on a theme that almost every listener has encountered in some form, I'm sure.
Yeah, we all know someone.
Right. We all know someone, or perhaps in our more honest moments, we realize we have been that someone who struggles profoundly to draw boundaries.
The person who just constantly sacrifices themselves to appease others.
Exactly. Pouring from an empty cup until they end up completely fundamentally burnt out.
It is a dynamic that plays out in, well, millions of households, yet it almost always happens completely behind closed doors.
Which makes it so hard to study.
Right, that isolation makes it incredibly difficult to dissect the mechanics of why people get stuck in these destructive loops, and more importantly, how to actually pull them out without accidentally making the situation worse.
Which is exactly why the source material we are working with today is so incredibly rare. I mean, we aren't reviewing some polished academic paper today.
No, not a sterilized clinical textbook written from the safety of an observation room.
Yeah, what we have is a collection of raw, agonizingly detailed personal records. It's essentially a real-time journal from someone who is actively in the trenches.
They're trying to help their sister recover from severe depression, codependency, and the lingering effects of what they call an adult-children family dynamic.
And the overarching mission of this deep dive is to extract the practical and honestly often highly counterintuitive psychological strategies this author is using.
Strategies to rebuild their sister's self-worth and independence.
Right. We are going to explore the hidden mechanics of misplaced self-sacrifice.
Right.
And why it destroys the wrong people.
We'll examine how a person's physical space serves as a tangible mirror of their internal mental state.
And perhaps most intriguingly, we will break down a concept we can call psychological judo.
Oh, I love that term.
It's so fitting. It's the strategy of using manufactured requests and calculated vulnerability to cure a loved one's pervasive feeling of worthlessness.
This material deals heavily with mental illness, chronic exhaustion, and these cyclical relationship traps. But as you read through these notes, it really becomes clear that this is fundamentally a story of proactive, deeply thoughtful love.
It really is. It provides granular insights into how human behavior can actually be rewired.
It's a masterclass in getting highly strategic about how we care for people, like moving away from our raw instinctual reactions and toward architectural behavioral change.
Architectural behavioral change. I like that. Because instinctual compassion is often the very mechanism that reinforces helplessness, isn't it?
Oh, constantly. We see someone struggling, and our immediate instinctual response is to remove all obstacles for them, to coddle them,
Do all the work on their behalf.
Exactly. But as these records illustrate, that kind of unstructured compassion can become the exact cage that keeps a person trapped in their illness.
Wow, unstructured compassion as a cage. That perfectly sets up the very first interaction on the records. Because they actually start by illustrating this tension through the most immediate physical aspect of the sister's recovery.
Her medication management.
Right. The author uses the daily routine of dispensing pills as a microcosm for the family's entire approach to establishing boundaries.
The text notes that the sister recently requested to take control of her own medication.
And the author, who is acting as the primary caregiver, agrees. But they insist on dispensing this medication strictly 1 week at a time. No bulk bottles, no early refills, just 7 days.
And the author provides a bulletproof behavioral rationale for this strictness. If the sister is given a month's supply, takes too much to numb her anxiety, and runs out early.
She cannot simply be handed a refill to smooth things over.
Right. She has to experience the friction and the consequences of poor self-management in a controlled environment.
But the deeper psychological reasoning the author outlines here has to do with the response to distress. Right.
Exactly. The author notes that if the sister experiences a wave of intense panic, throws a tantrum, or exhibits extreme emotional distress, and is subsequently given extra medication to calm her down,
What happens?
the caregiver is actually creating a highly dangerous conditioning loop.
Okay, I'm going to pause on that because withholding medication from someone in the middle of a panic attack feels deeply counterintuitive to caregiving.
It feels awful.
Right. If someone is emotionally drowning right in front of you, the instinct is to just throw them the chemical life preserver. Are we saying the caregiver should just sit there and watch her suffer?
It feels cold in the moment for sure, but the alternative is neurologically disastrous.
Disastrous how?
Well, if the caregiver yields to the panic and provides the pill-off schedule, they are establishing a Pavlovian reflex.
Oh.
The brain is an incredibly efficient pattern recognition machine. It will immediately link the state of panic with a chemical reward.
So over time, the subconscious learns that escalating distress is the most effective tool to acquire the desired neurochemical outcome.
You know, it reminds me of feeding a stray cat that comes scratching at your back door.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
Yeah, if you hear the scratching, feel annoyed or bad for the cat, and open the door to give it food, you aren't teaching the cat to be calm or satisfied.
No, you're teaching it that scratching the door is the exact mechanism that produces food.
Right, so if the sister panics and gets the pill, her brain registers, panic is the mechanism by which we acquire relief.
The caregiver would be inadvertently training the exact emotional volatility they are trying to cure.
That is so incredibly tough. I mean, the author demonstrates immense self-awareness here by recognizing their own power in this dynamic.
They really do, because they are the dispenser of the medication. They are holding the conditioning tool.
Yeah. If they yield to the tantrum to alleviate their own discomfort, just to make the screaming stop, they become culpable in reinforcing the sister's illness. They have to tolerate the short-term distress of the panic attack to protect the long-term architecture of the sister's recovery.
Now, that structural discipline makes logical sense. But man, the day-to-day reality of implementing it has to be a minefield.
A total minefield.
Handing out pills like a strict pharmacist to your own sibling in your own home comes with so much emotional baggage. So how does the author navigate the actual physical delivery of this weekly supply without turning it into a weekly battle of wills?
Well, the source text actually highlights a micro-interaction regarding exactly this delivery moment. The author explicitly notes a strict rule for themselves.
What is it?
When handing over the weekly supply of pills, it must be done with absolute positivity and matter-of-fact confidence.
Okay, that seems straightforward.
But here's the catch. The author forbids themselves from asking questions like, "Are you okay today?" or "Do you think you can handle managing this for the whole week?"
Wait, really? But asking, "Are you okay?" is like the default setting for anyone interacting with a sick loved one.
Right. It feels like the bare minimum of empathy.
Exactly. Why is that forbidden?
Because empathy without structure can be completely undermining.
Okay, break that down for me.
The author astutely points out that asking those tentative, probing questions plants a subconscious seed of doubt in the sister's mind.
Oh, I see.
It implants the impression that the caregiver expects her to fail. It communicates a subtle, non-verbal message that says, "I am giving you this responsibility, but I don't actually believe you are capable of holding it."
Wow. That taps directly into the power of expectation. It's like the Gollum effect in psychology.
Exactly the Gollum effect, where lower expectations placed upon an individual lead directly to poorer performance.
Right. If the person handing you the tools for your survival looks at you with pity and doubt, your brain just adopts that doubt as its own baseline reality.
Conversely, by handing over the medication with a positive, unbothered demeanor, the author is non-verbally communicating the Pygmalion effect.
High expectations lead to higher performance.
Exactly. The message becomes, you are a functioning adult, you are completely capable of handling a 1-week supply of medication, and I trust you to do so without incident.
So the tone of the interaction shapes the sister's identity in that very moment.
It really does. How we frame our help can either build a scaffold for autonomy, or it can reinforce a deeply ingrained narrative of helplessness.
That is such a subtle shift in phrasing. But the implications for a person's self-concept are just massive.
Massive.
And this idea of our seemingly caring actions having unintended destructive consequences brings us to the sister's relationship with her boyfriend.
Ah, yes, the boyfriend.
Because while the author is carefully calibrating every micro-interaction to build the sister up, the sister is pouring all of her energy into a dynamic that is actively tearing her down.
Her personal definition of being a kind girlfriend is actually a masterclass in misplaced self-sacrifice.
The text provides a very clear incident that illustrates this, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How this self-sacrifice radiates outward, damaging not just the sister, but the entire family unit.
Yeah, the author records a moment where they had to sternly scold the sister. The sister had started oversleeping drastically and, as a result, missed a crucial, pre-scheduled family hospital appointment.
And when confronted, the sister immediately broke down crying, defaulting to the narrative that she was just a useless burden to everyone.
But the author didn't let her hide behind those tears.
No, they didn't.
They cut through the crying and confronted her with the reality of where her energy was actually going.
The details in the journal here paint a pretty stark picture of the sister's relationship economics.
She is catering entirely, almost obsessively, to her boyfriend's lifestyle.
Yeah, she attempts to match his income level so she can accompany him to restaurants she objectively cannot afford.
Which leaves her racked with silent guilt and financial anxiety.
And then she completely exhausts her physical and mental reserves keeping up with his demands. Staying up late into the night gaming with him, or forcing herself to go out when she's already running on a severely depleted battery.
The contrast the author draws between the sister's past and present behavior is super illuminating here.
Oh, with the appointments, right?
Yeah. Previously, when the sister was managing her energy better, she was so conscientious about family obligations that she would sit in the entryway, fully ready, 30 minutes before a family appointment.
She valued the family's time.
Exactly. Now, because she is funneling 100% of her limited energy into appeasing this boyfriend, she sleeps through alarms, she delays the entire household, and she misses critical medical appointments.
And the author distills this dynamic into one of the most profound observations in the entire text.
What did they say?
They tell the sister, the backlash of misplaced self-sacrifice always falls on the truly kind people around you.
Wow. The backlash of misplaced self-sacrifice always falls on the truly kind people around you.
It completely reframes the entire concept of martyrdom. The sister operates under the delusion that she's being noble, right?
Yeah, she thinks she's absorbing all this pain and exhaustion to be the perfect, selfless girlfriend.
But the author is pointing out the physics of the situation. Energy is finite. By completely draining her battery to satisfy the boyfriend, she has absolutely nothing left for the basic, reciprocal obligations of her family life.
She isn't just hurting herself.
Exactly. She is forcing her family to absorb the collateral damage of her exhaustion.
She is essentially stealing time, energy, and peace of mind from the healthy people in her life to subsidize the demands of a toxic relationship.
The family becomes the shock absorber for the boyfriend's lifestyle.
It's so true.
But I have to ask about the specific gravity of this boyfriend. Like, why is she so obsessed with catering to his exact lifestyle?
It's a really good question.
It feels like observing a social chameleon, a lizard that changes its color to match whatever leaf it's sitting on, until it eventually forgets what its original natural color even was.
Yeah, she's matching his spending, his sleep schedule, his gaming habits.
She is entirely losing her own form. So what is the payoff for her?
Well, the text gives us a fascinating behavioral profile of the boyfriend that explains the magnetic pull of this dynamic, especially for someone struggling with codependency.
Okay, let's hear it.
In public, the boyfriend presents incredibly well. He went to university, he appears highly logical, articulate, and he wears what the author describes as a good adult face.
A good adult face.
Yeah, he commands a certain level of societal respect.
The socially acceptable mask. So it validates her choice to the outside world.
Precisely. But behind closed doors, exclusively in the presence of the sister, that mask drops entirely, and he exhibits severe regression.
Severe regression.
Yeah, the author specifically characterizes his private behavior as babyish. He demands to be constantly catered to, fed, emotionally regulated, and entertained as if he were an infant.
Oh, wow. And to a codependent mind, that regression isn't a red flag at all, is it?
Not at all. It's a badge of honor.
She likely interprets that dynamic as profound intimacy. She thinks, I am the only person in the world who gets to see his vulnerable side. The smart, successful university man needs me to survive behind closed doors.
It manufactures a deep, albeit artificial, sense of indispensability.
The author, maintaining a crucial objective distance, sees right through this romanticization, though.
They really do. They explicitly warn the sister that this split personality is dangerous.
And there's a very raw moment in the records where they compare the boyfriend to someone else, right?
Yeah, the author compares the boyfriend's two-faced nature directly to their own father's behavior.
That's heavy.
It is. They point out that their father is also charming and functional to the outside world, but aggressively demanding and emotionally draining to the family inside the house.
So the author is holding up a mirror, trying to show the sister that she isn't embarking on some unique romantic journey.
Right, she's simply stepping into a generational trap, signing up to spend her life caretaking a man-child just like their mother did.
That is a devastating parallel to draw. Devastating, but a necessary one. Yet it raises a glaring question about cognitive dissonance.
How so?
If the sister is making herself so utterly miserable, missing appointments and causing chaos for the family she loves, how does she justify continuing the cycle? Like, how does she not see the reality of her own deterioration?
Well, the author actually addresses this by identifying how the depressed brain actively edits reality to protect its own dysfunction.
Edits reality.
Yeah, the author describes a phenomenon closely related to what psychology calls negative filtering or selective abstraction.
Right.
The depressed brain becomes a highly biased editor, aggressively curating memories to reinforce a narrative of worthlessness.
And the text provides a harrowing example of this filtering in action.
It does. During a moment of deep distress, the sister claims that her doctor told her she isn't even depressed.
And that her inability to maintain a job is just being lazy.
Exactly. She uses this alleged quote to completely invalidate her entire struggle, using the doctor's supposed words as a weapon against herself to sink deeper into despair.
But we have to question the objective reality of that memory, right?
You really do.
Did a trained medical professional actually deliver a diagnosis in such overtly cruel, unscientific language?
Highly unlikely.
Or is this the sister's cognitive distortion warping a clinical conversation about behavioral activation into a personal attack?
Exactly. And the author doesn't waste time arguing about what the doctor literally said.
What do they do instead?
They execute a brilliant cognitive intervention. They explain the neurological mechanism of selective memory to the sister.
Okay.
They tell her plainly that her brain is utilizing a twisted survival mechanism. It is actively hoarding criticisms, perceived slights, and failures, while systematically deleting every single positive milestone she has achieved.
Because it's a defense mechanism against hope, isn't it?
How do you mean?
Well, if you acknowledge hope or progress, you suddenly have something to lose. If you convince yourself you are a lazy, incurable failure, you never have to take the terrifying risk of trying to get better.
That is so true. To shatter that self-deception, the author forces her to look at objective, undeniable reality.
They construct an external ledger of her progress.
Yes. They force her to recall a highly specific, concrete list of achievements.
This win list in the source text is fascinating because it proves that recovery is measured in inches, not miles.
Oh, absolutely. These aren't abstract concepts of feeling better. They are hard, physical data points.
So what exactly did the author remind her of? Let's go through the list.
Okay, first, the author points out that she successfully quit drinking alcohol.
That's huge.
Massive. For an individual battling severe depression and relying on numbing agents, breaking a chemical coping mechanism is a monumental victory.
What else?
Second, she has been actively and successfully navigating the notoriously complex, exhausting bureaucracy of securing her disability pension.
Which is a nightmare, even on a good day.
Exactly. Third, she has taken agency over her physical health by managing her diet and cutting out the excessive snacking that was dragging down her energy.
Okay.
And fourth, she initiated a new hobby, making handmade crafts, which requires focus, creativity, and follow-through.
And the list includes significant mobility and medical milestones, too, doesn't it?
It does. The author reminds her that she is now walking without the use of her cane.
Wow.
She achieved this by deliberately practicing taking short, intentional walks to the local post office to build her strength.
Just step by step.
Furthermore, she recently endured a bone marrow injection.
Ouch.
Right. This procedure requires anesthesia and is physically grueling. The author notes that in her previous state of heightened anxiety and physical fragility, enduring such a medical procedure would have been completely unthinkable.
Incredible. But you know what stands out to me most on this list, though?
What's that?
The sociological victories. The author doesn't just list physical health wins. They highlight her burgeoning ability to set boundaries.
Yes. The boundary setting is perhaps the most crucial indicator of her underlying psychological recovery.
Tell me about the boundaries.
The author reminds her that she successfully expressed a desire to walk to the game center alone.
Okay, alone.
That represents a deliberate carving out of independent space, pushing back against the enmeshed codependent dynamic with the boyfriend.
That's a great step.
Even more significantly, she successfully enforced a boundary regarding her personal space at home. She got the boyfriend to stop bringing his friend's girlfriend into her private second-floor room.
Now, the context the text provides for that specific boundary is vital.
The introverted family.
Right. The family is described as deeply introverted. Having a total stranger brought into the inner sanctum of the house, the private second floor, was causing the rest of the family immense, palpable mental exhaustion.
And initially, the sister couldn't compute why this was an issue.
Her enmeshed mindset told her, if I am friends with this person, my family should automatically be fine with them being here.
Right. But she actually listened to her family's distress, internalized a perspective outside her own, learned where the boundary needed to be, and then executed the deeply uncomfortable task of enforcing it with her boyfriend.
Enforcing a territorial boundary against a partner who demands total access requires immense emotional regulation.
Immense. Yet, her depressed brain completely deleted that massive display of emotional intelligence in favor of ruminating on one perceived slight from a doctor.
It perfectly illustrates why an external ledger is a matter of survival. When you are in the thick of burnout, depression, or codependency, your internal monologue is a deeply unreliable narrator.
Completely unreliable.
Your brain is a compromised hard drive. I think about how applicable this is to everyday life,
Oh, for sure. We all do this.
We all experience weeks where we feel like we are completely failing simply because our brains have deleted the memory of the 5 complex problems we solved, highlighting only the one email we forgot to send.
Progress is practically invisible to the person making it.
We desperately need trusted people around us to read the ledger back to us, to tether us to the reality of our own competence.
That external validation breaks the cycle of negative filtering. But, the author's observations don't stop at the internal workings of the sister's mind.
Where do they go next?
They recognize that internal chaos always seeks an external canvas. The records document exactly how the sister's internal hoarding of negative thoughts manifests physically in her environment.
Oh, the room. This brings us to a stark visual reality described in the text.
It's pretty shocking.
The sister's physical space has become a literal mirror of her mental state. The author notes that the sister's bed has devolved into a trash house.
A trash house?
It is so thoroughly covered in clutter, garbage, and accumulated items that she can no longer physically use it. She has been forced to sleep on the living room sofa.
And the author approaches this not just as a cleaning issue, but through a really profound philosophical lens.
How so?
They communicate to the sister that the act of preparing your bed, keeping the place where your body rests clean, clear, and sacred, is the ultimate expression of self-care.
I love that.
By allowing her bed to become a landfill, she isn't just being messy, she is providing undeniable physical proof that she has entirely ceased to value her own rest.
She has physically evicted herself from her own sanctuary.
Exactly.
And the text links this physical chaos directly to her dysregulated energy output. The author describes the sister as operating constantly at what they call 300% capacity.
This 300% capacity is the hallmark of an all-or-nothing, highly dysregulated nervous system.
Right.
She lacks a middle gear. When she plays a video game, it isn't casual relaxation. It is 100% intense, obsessive focus.
And when she engages in her handmade crafts.
It's 100% manic production. When she suddenly feels the urge to organize, it manifests as a 100% frantic, exhaustive purging of the room.
So she is running 3 separate engines at maximum RPM simultaneously.
Which guarantees she's perpetually running on empty.
And when a human being is running on empty, they inevitably reach for quick, low-effort fixes to simulate a feeling of fullness.
They do.
The records illustrate this perfectly with an incident involving Uber Eats.
Oh, the snacks.
Yes. The sister recently utilized the app to order 3 massive bags of cheap, processed snacks. Now, a standard caregiver, already stressed and exhausted, might simply yell at her for wasting limited money or bringing more trash into a house she refuses to clean.
Which is understandable.
Very understandable. But the author restrains that instinct. Instead, they use what they describe as a kindergarten-level explanation to help the sister map her physical actions to her emotional deficits.
Right. The author sits her down and explains that buying cheap 100 yen items in bulk has absolutely nothing to do with physical hunger.
So what is it?
It is a frantic, misguided attempt to fill a spiritual void.
A spiritual void.
Yes. The author explicitly maps out the tragic cycle she is trapped in. She feels an overwhelming internal emptiness, so she hoards cheap items to trigger a momentary artificial spike in dopamine.
But the items quickly lose their novelty.
Exactly, and simply pile up, exacerbating the physical clutter of the trash house.
Which creates sensory overload.
And feelings of being trapped, which triggers her black and white 300% capacity thinking.
So she swings to the opposite extreme.
Right, executing a manic purge where she throws absolutely everything away. But once the room is entirely bare, the underlying spiritual void remains unaddressed.
The panic returns.
And the cycle of consumption begins all over again.
It is the exact mechanics of an addiction cycle. I think of this behavior as consuming emotional fast food.
Emotional fast food, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, if your body is starving for complex nutrients, but you eat a massive bag of cheap candy, you will feel physically full for about 10 minutes.
But the sugar crash leaves you jittery, deeply malnourished, and ultimately sicker than before you ate.
Exactly. She is consuming these cheap goods and pouring her energy into cheap interactions in the exact same way. She is stuffing herself with empty calories to avoid the hard work of actual nourishment.
That analogy captures the physiological reality of the cycle perfectly. And the text provides a deeply poignant, almost cinematic vignette that captures the state of emotional malnourishment beautifully.
Oh, the teddy bear incident.
Yes, the teddy bear.
This detail is just stunning. Let's walk through exactly what happened.
So at the beginning of a difficult conversation, the sister casually remarks to the author that her teddy bear looks sad today.
The bear looks sad. Okay.
The conversation continues, evolving into a gas venting session where the sister finally breaks down, cries deeply, and releases a massive amount of suppressed emotional pressure.
A real catharsis.
Yes. After this catharsis, she glances back at the bear and remarks, "Oh, the bear is smiling now."
Now, to a layman, that just sounds like a childlike projection, right?
Sure.
She feels relieved. So she projects that relief onto an inanimate object.
It is projection, absolutely, but the author utilizes it for a masterful psychological intervention.
What do they say?
The author doesn't dismiss the comment. Instead, they look at the sister and deliver this observation. The bear was sad because it saw you not taking care of yourself.
Wow. The bear was sad because it saw you not taking care of yourself. That reframes her entire reality in one sentence.
It really does.
It forces her to view her self-abandonment from a third-party perspective. She is so devoid of self-worth that she cannot feel empathy for her own suffering.
Exactly.
But by projecting her emotions into the bear, the author allows her to feel empathy for the bear, who is forced to act as a witness to her self-destruction.
It creates a safe, externalized space for self-compassion.
That is so incredibly smart.
The author's ability to recognize and utilize that psychological opening is remarkable. And, it's born of a deep critical self-awareness, which the author actually turns on themselves shortly after this incident.
Oh, with the app, right?
Yes. The author begins to critically evaluate their own role in the sisters' burnout, specifically regarding a well-intentioned project involving the Mercari selling app.
Okay, this is where we see the danger of the fixer mentality.
Oh, totally.
The sister had found a healthy coping mechanism in making handmade crafts. The author, wanting to be supportive and perhaps hoping to foster some financial independence, took it upon themselves to set up an entire ecosystem for the sister on Mercari, which is a popular online marketplace.
The author thought, "I'll handle the tech setup. She can just sell her art."
But the author realizes, in hindsight, that this intervention was actually a trap.
A huge trap. By setting up the store, they inadvertently forced the sister into the role of a full-time small business owner.
Yeah.
The sister suddenly found herself obligated to manage product photography, write engaging descriptions, handle customer service inquiries, and manage shipping logistics.
All of that.
All of it. The therapeutic, low-stakes act of crafting was instantly transformed into a high-pressure, overwhelming obligation.
The author realizes they took a genuine source of joy and accidentally weaponized it into a source of burnout. It perfectly illustrates how even the most loving, well-intentioned help can become a crushing weight if it is applied without a deep understanding of the recipient's actual capacity.
Right, you can't build a skyscraper's infrastructure on a foundation made of sand.
You really can't. And that foundation, The sister's baseline capacity for stress is deeply compromised by the environment she lives in.
The family home.
Yes, the sister struggles with exhaustion, emotional fast food, and codependency do not exist in a vacuum. They are symptoms of the larger ecosystem she inhabits.
And the records dedicate significant space to the fascinating, highly reactive mechanics of this adult-children household dynamic.
Okay, let's unpack that term, adult children, or AC, because it's the key to understanding the next set of interactions.
Okay, so in psychological terms, adult children refers to adults who grew up in highly dysfunctional, unpredictable, or alcoholic homes.
Right.
To survive emotionally in that environment, these children develop profound hypervigilance.
They have to.
Yeah, their nervous systems become acutely tuned to the microexpressions, footsteps, and moods of their parents. They learn to constantly scan the environment for threats.
It's a survival tactic.
Exactly. But the tragedy is that they carry this hyper-tuned, deeply exhausting radar into adulthood, long after the immediate danger has passed.
Ah.
They react to everyday stressors as if they are life-or-death emotional threats.
The records provide two specific, illuminating case studies of this hypervigilance in action, don't they?
Yes, the mother's sighs and the father's criticism.
Okay, let's start with the mother's sighs, because it highlights how logical solutions often fail entirely in an emotional ecosystem.
It really does.
The author noticed that the mother was constantly sighing, visibly burdened by the endless cycle of household chores.
Right. So the author, utilizing that same fixer mentality we saw with the Mercari app, steps in with a perfectly logical solution.
What do they do?
They decide to absorb the burden to alleviate the mother's stress. The author systematically takes over all the household chores.
The logic is sound, right?
Yeah.
Remove the physical burden,
Yeah.
remove the stress, stop the sighing. But what actually happened?
The mother began sighing more.
Which, on a purely functional level, makes absolutely zero sense.
Functionally, no. It makes no sense. But psychologically, the author had inadvertently triggered a massive identity crisis.
Oh, wow.
The mother eventually articulated the problem, stating explicitly that she had nothing to do.
Oh, no.
By removing all her chores, the author hadn't just removed her labor, they had removed her primary role within the family structure. She lost her sense of purpose and utility.
So what did the author do?
Recognizing the error, the author handed the chore responsibilities back to the mother.
Yeah.
Almost immediately, the mother's demeanor shifted, and she began humming happily while doing the housework.
I call this phenomenon stealing someone's purpose.
Stealing someone's purpose.
We do this constantly out of love. We see an elderly parent struggling to cook or a partner stressed about a project, and we swoop in and take the task away entirely, thinking we are gifting them peace.
But we aren't.
No. Often, the friction of the task is the very thing grounding them to the earth. It is proof that they are needed. If you eliminate all friction for someone, you create a frictionless vacuum where their sense of self-worth simply suffocates.
It's a profound lesson in the limits of intervention. But, the author's primary concern in this scenario is actually how the mother's sighing impacts the hypervigilant sister.
Right, because of the adult-children dynamic.
Exactly. In an AC dynamic, the sister hears the mother let out a heavy sigh, and her childhood conditioning instantly hijacks her nervous system.
What goes through her head?
She doesn't think, Mom is tired from folding laundry. Her brain immediately concludes, Mom is sighing because of me. My existence is a burden. I am making my mother suffer.
It's a full somatic threat response.
Completely.
A sigh isn't just an exhale. To the sister, it's an auditory trigger signaling emotional danger. So, how does the author rewire a physiological response like that?
By acting as a translator for objective reality.
What do you mean?
The author sits the sister down and demystifies the biological mechanics of a sigh.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they explain that when a human being is experiencing stress or is simply lost in deep concentration, their breathing naturally becomes shallow.
Right, we all do that.
Over time, the body experiences an oxygen deficit. The sigh is simply the autonomic nervous system forcing a deep, involuntary intake of oxygen to correct that deficit.
Wow, they literally explain the biology of it.
Yes. The author explicitly teaches the sister. A sigh is a physiological requirement for oxygen. It is not a referendum on your worth. The mother's stress belongs to the mother. It is not your responsibility to absorb it.
Her stress belongs to her.
Mm-hmm.
That is the arduous work of teaching emotional boundaries. Her feelings are not my feelings. Her fatigue is not my fault.
Exactly.
But holding that boundary requires immense energy, which is severely tested by the other major force in the house, isn't it? The father.
Yes, the father. The text notes that the father is a constant source of active toxicity. He routinely complains that the mother's cooking is not delicious, aggressively rejecting meals and demanding snacks instead.
And we see the sister's AC conditioning flare up dramatically in response to this cruelty, don't we?
We do. Because she is deeply wounded by her father's disrespect toward her mother, she panics and overcompensates.
How so?
She nervously fawns over the food, praising it loudly and excessively in a desperate attempt to balance the emotional scales and shield her mother from the negativity.
She throws herself on the grenade to protect the mother.
Exactly.
But the author, interestingly, refuses to play that game. They take a vastly different, highly calculated approach to the father's behavior.
The author's tactical approach reveals the complex structural politics of a dysfunctional family.
Tell me about it.
The author notes that if a dish actually is too salty, and they honestly agree with the father's assessment, the father immediately weaponizes that honesty.
Oh, no.
Yes, he uses the author's agreement to form a 2-on-1 coalition, validating his cruelty and ganging up on the mother.
So the author is trapped. They can't be honest about the food without handing the father a weapon to beat the mother with.
Right.
How do they navigate a dinner table where the truth is weaponized?
They prioritize the structural safety of the mother over culinary honesty. They navigate the feedback carefully to deny the father his coalition.
Okay.
But internally, to survive the daily onslaught of this negativity without absorbing it, the author admits to utilizing a brutal psychological defense mechanism.
What is it?
They deliberately and consciously train themselves to view the father as a lesser being.
Whoa. That is an incredibly harsh framing. A lesser being. It feels almost dehumanizing.
It is entirely dehumanizing, and the author acknowledges that, but they explain it as a strictly necessary tool for emotional detachment.
How does it help?
By categorizing the father this way, the author fundamentally alters the power dynamic in their own mind.
Oh, I think I see.
If a dog barks at you, you don't internalize it as a critique of your character.
Right.
You just recognize that a dog is barking.
Right.
By viewing the father as fundamentally incapable of higher emotional reasoning, the author can laugh off his toxic outbursts rather than absorbing the damage.
That makes a lot of sense, actually.
They recognize the stark reality. You cannot therapy an elder who vehemently refuses to change and enjoys using his family as an emotional punching bag. You can only manage the blast radius.
It's pure survival tactics. And it highlights the sheer mental load the author is carrying, managing the fragile, hyper-vigilant ecosystem of the sister on one side, and containing the aggressive toxicity of the father on the other.
It's a lot.
But this brings us to what I believe is the absolute masterpiece of this entire journal.
The manufacturing of need.
Yes. The author takes the insight they learned from accidentally stealing the mother's purpose, and they apply it to the sister in a brilliantly inverted way. They realize that to cure the sister's profound feeling of worthlessness, they have to manufacture a need for her.
This is the core intervention of the entire deep dive. The author grasps a foundational tenet of Adlerian psychology, often referred to as contribution to others.
What does that mean exactly?
Human beings possess a deep evolutionary need to be of utility to their tribe. If we feel useless, we feel fundamentally unsafe.
Right.
The author deduces that if the family continues to treat the sister like a fragile glass doll, doing all her chores, managing all her affairs, demanding nothing of her, she will inevitably seek out an environment where her labor is demanded.
Which explains the gravitational pull of the regressed boyfriend.
Precisely. The author uses a specific Japanese cultural term here, daemon's walker.
Daemon's walker.
Yeah, it describes a person who is compulsively drawn to useless, troubled, or parasitic men.
Ah, I see.
The sister needs to feel necessary to justify her own existence. If her healthy family doesn't need her, she will instinctively hunt down a broken man to fix because his dysfunction guarantees her utility.
It's a terrifyingly logical trap.
Yeah.
So how does the author rewire this? How do you give someone their utility back when they are too exhausted to take on real responsibility?
Psychological judo.
Right. They take the momentum of her desperate, codependent need to please, and they redirect it into structured, healthy family contributions.
The text outlines 3 specific applications of this.
Let's start with a notebook project.
Okay, so the author deliberately assigns the sister a highly specific manual task, applying glue to assemble notebooks.
Okay.
The text mentions this is for someone named Barb, suggesting it's a community project or a small business task. It isn't busy work, it's a legitimate requirement.
And what did that do for her?
By asking the sister to execute this necessary manual labor, she gets to experience the tangible, undeniable reality of utility. Her hands produce something of value that the tribe needed.
It provides undeniable physical evidence of her worth.
Exactly.
But the author goes even further with the next tactic, which I found fascinating. The fake backache.
Ah, yes, the fake backache.
The author explicitly advises fabricating a physical ailment. They suggest saying, "Oh, my back is really hurting me today," specifically to create a socially acceptable opening to ask the sister to hang the laundry.
We have to look at the mechanics of why the backache is necessary here.
Go ahead.
If the author, who is perceived as the strong, highly capable caregiver, simply orders the sister to do the laundry, it registers as a chore, a command, or a punishment.
Right.
But by feigning an injury and expressing vulnerability, "I am in pain, I cannot do this, I need your help," it bypasses the sister's defensive filters and triggers her deep-seated caretaking instincts.
But wait, I have to challenge this.
Okay, challenge away.
Faking an injury to trick your sister into doing household chores feels incredibly convoluted. Like, why not just sit her down and tell her, "You live here. You need to contribute to the household labor"? Why rely on theatrical deception?
Because a direct demand relies on the sister having a healthy baseline of self-worth to respond to.
Yeah.
If you tell a deeply depressed person you need to do more, they hear, "You are failing."
That makes sense.
The deception, while convoluted, is an act of compassionate structural engineering. The text notes that even if the sister's own body is aching from depression, the sudden realization that the strong caregiver is vulnerable and that she is the only one who can relieve their pain pushes her into action.
So she pushes through her own inertia.
Not out of obligation, but out of a noble desire to protect her family. The action builds her self-esteem regardless of the prompt.
It flips the script on how we perceive caregiving.
And it really does.
We are culturally conditioned to believe that caring for a sick loved one means bringing them soup, fluffing their pillows, and doing their laundry. We think care is the removal of burden.
But the author is demonstrating something else.
That sometimes the most profound act of care is to ask the sick person to help you, to remind them, through action, that they still possess value and strengths that the world requires.
Which brings us to the most complex orchestration in the records.
The discount coupon conspiracy.
Yes. This is a masterclass in redirecting anxious, codependent energy.
We need the historical context for this one.
Right. So the sister, driven by her desperate need to prove her worth to the family, would obsessively scour flyers, clip discount coupons, and aggressively push them onto her mother.
Like, "Look, Mom, I'm contributing. Here's a coupon for 10 yen off eggs. Use it."
Exactly. But the mother is an adult who already has her own established shopping systems, preferred stores, and budgets.
Right.
To the mother, this frantic influx of unprompted coupons wasn't helpful. It was an annoying, chaotic intrusion.
But if the mother rejects them?
Exactly. If the mother reacts honestly and outright rejects the coupon saying, "I don't need these, stop bothering me with trash," it inflicts a devastating psychological blow to the sister.
It confirms her deepest fear. My attempts to help are useless, therefore I am useless.
So the author steps in to mediate this disastrous dynamic. They orchestrate a literal conspiracy of love between the mother and the sister.
What do they tell the mother to do?
The author instructs the mother to fundamentally alter the architecture of the interaction. Instead of passively receiving the unwanted coupons and getting annoyed, the mother is instructed to proactively manufacture a request.
A manufactured request.
Yeah, when the sister is out running errands, the mother must call her and explicitly ask, "Could you go to this specific store and check the price of this specific item for me? I really need to know."
It is absolutely brilliant logistical routing.
It really is.
It takes the massive chaotic river of the sister's anxious energy and channels it into a structured, highly useful canal. It shifts the interaction from an unprompted, annoying intrusion into a solicited, vital mission.
And the sister gets the profound satisfaction of acting as a crucial scout for the family.
While the mother gets the pricing information she actually wants, without having to manage a pile of useless coupons.
And the family avoids a massive emotional meltdown. It is true psychological judo using the opponent's momentum, but subtly shifting their footing so they land exactly where you want them to.
By meticulously manufacturing these daily requests, the notebooks, the laundry, the price checks, the author is slowly filling the sister's internal reservoir of self-worth.
She is relearning that she is a valuable, contributing node in the healthy family network.
But the ultimate test of this recovery is whether she can take that internally generated self-worth and apply it externally, right?
Specifically, she must learn to set boundaries with the toxic boyfriend.
Because it's one thing to hang the laundry for a grateful sibling. It is an entirely different level of emotional strength to look a demanding partner in the eye and say no.
Yeah. The records note that she struggles intensely to reject the boyfriend's demands to hang out late at night at the game center, which is the primary engine of her chronic exhaustion.
And to the sister's codependent mind, saying no to a request feels identical to saying, I do not love you anymore.
She fears that a single rejection will cause the entire relationship to collapse.
So what does the author do?
The author recognizes this catastrophic thinking and provides highly specific tactical coaching on how to decline a request without triggering a fear of abandonment.
They teach her a framework, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's called positive future scheduling.
Walk us through the mechanics of that framework. How does she actually script that conversation?
The framework has 3 distinct steps. First, you articulate the concrete logistical consequences of the request to remove any sense of personal rejection.
Give me an example.
For example, she is taught to say, if I go out late to the game center with you tonight, I will oversleep and miss my family dinner tomorrow.
It makes the refusal about physics, not feelings.
Exactly. Second, you deliver the firm boundary. Therefore, I cannot go out tonight.
Okay, that's the no.
Third, and this is the vital piece that neutralizes the codependent anxiety, you immediately propose a positive future event.
Like what?
But next time we hang out, let's play the taiko drum game together.
No for today, but an enthusiastic yes for the future.
Right. It's incredibly effective because it reassures the partner's ego that the relationship is secure and desired, while simultaneously throwing up a reinforced steel wall around the immediate boundary.
And to ensure the sister understands the gravity of holding this wall, the author directs her attention to a real-time cautionary tale playing out right in front of them, don't they?
Yes, the boyfriend's friend.
The collateral damage of the boyfriend's lifestyle. The text notes that this specific friend is the one tasked with driving the boyfriend and the sister around late at night.
The author points out the undeniable consequences of this lack of boundaries. The records note that this friend is now making significant, noticeable mistakes at his actual job because of these late-night, uncompensated driving shifts.
Wow.
The author forces the sister to look at him and says, look closely at his life. That is exactly what happens when you refuse to set boundaries. The exhaustion doesn't just evaporate. It accumulates, it catches up, and it eventually destroys your ability to function in your actual life.
It's a chilling, real-world consequence. And what strikes me is how universally applicable this positive future scheduling framework is, far beyond the realm of clinical codependency.
Oh, universally applicable.
Every listener right now can apply this. Think about your workplace. How often do we accept a late-night project from a demanding boss, entirely out of fear that saying no will make us look uncommitted?
All the time.
We take it on, we burn out, and we ruin our productivity for the rest of the week. Or with our social circles, how often do we agree to attend an event we dread, spend the entire time miserable, and end up resenting our friends for inviting us?
It is a pervasive human habit to trade long-term functionality for short-term appeasement.
But if we use this framework, it changes everything. Imagine telling your boss, if I take on this extra analysis tonight, it will compromise the quality of the primary presentation tomorrow. So I cannot take it tonight, but I would love to take the lead on the quarterly review next month.
It fiercely protects your current energy reserves while actively signaling your ongoing commitment to the team.
It is a universal tool for navigating complex relationships without setting yourself on fire.
It provides a mechanism to be both protective of oneself and engaged with the community.
Well, this has been an absolutely staggering journey through these deeply personal records.
We have covered an immense amount of psychological ground today.
We really have. We started by examining the strict, unyielding mechanics of dispensing medication, unpacking how caregivers must endure the discomfort of panic to avoid establishing disastrous Pavlovian conditioning loops.
We move through the subtle, insidious trap of misplaced self-sacrifice.
Learning the hard economic reality that draining your battery for a toxic person ultimately punishes the healthy people who rely on your presence.
We explored the undeniable connection between the physical environment and the mind, seeing how a bed covered in trash or a room hoarded with cheap items acts as a direct physical manifestation of a mind hoarding negative emotions.
Trying to frantically fill a spiritual void with emotional fast food.
We unpacked the hypervigilance of the adult-children ecosystem, learning how a simple sigh can trigger a somatic threat response.
And finally, we discovered the absolute counterintuitive brilliance of manufacturing requests.
The realization that true healing sometimes requires asking someone who feels utterly worthless to carry a physical burden for you, thereby providing them with undeniable proof of their own utility and self-worth.
To everyone listening to this deep dive right now, whether you are currently in the trenches trying to help a struggling loved one navigate their own murky waters, or whether you are slowly realizing that you are the one constantly, chronically exhausting yourself for the benefit of others, there is a core, unshakable truth embedded in these records.
True kindness does not mean setting yourself on fire just to ensure someone else stays warm.
Unstructured compassion can be a cage. Sometimes the most deeply loving, profoundly therapeutic thing you can do for someone is to step back, express your own vulnerability, and ask them to help you carry the laundry.
That is a truth worth anchoring to.
But before we sign off, I want to leave you with one final, deeply provocative thought. It comes from the very end of the source material.
Yes.
In an attempt to make the sister understand the profound gravity of her relapse into codependency, the author uses a fascinating theological framing.
It is a striking shift in tone. The author sits the sister down and tells her that her current relapse, the crippling exhaustion, the sleeping in the trash house, the missed hospital appointments, is essentially a trial from Jesus Christ.
Now, whether you subscribe to that theology or not, the psychological mechanism behind why the author frames it this way is absolutely staggering.
The author explains the timeline of her illness like this. When the sister was at her absolute lowest, dwelling in the deepest, darkest pit of her clinical depression, she was fiercely, almost militantly dedicated to her self-care routines.
She diligently used her light therapy lamp for exactly 30 minutes every single day without fail.
She meticulously tracked and took her supplements.
She fiercely protected her rest time, seeking comfort with her teddy bear. She treated her recovery as a literal matter of life and death, because in that dark pit, it was.
But then the routines worked. She started to feel a little bit better.
And the tragedy is what she did with that newfound health. Instead of maintaining the routines that saved her, she immediately abandoned every single one of those self-care practices.
She took that fresh, fragile energy and poured it directly into serving the endless demands of her toxic boyfriend.
The author looks at her and says, "You are facing this trial because you stopped protecting yourself the exact moment you felt strong enough to serve someone else."
Wow.
And this is the thought I want you to carry with you as you go about the rest of your week. We talked at the very beginning of this deep dive about how the X-ray machine is broken in the world of psychology. We do not get clean white lines telling us exactly when the bone is healed.
So true.
So I have to ask you, do we only grant ourselves the grace of self-care when we are in a state of absolute undeniable crisis?
Do we only rest when the bone is visibly broken?
And if that is true, well, what would happen to our lives, to our relationships, and to our peace of mind if we treated our healthy days with the exact same protective urgency and the exact same fierce boundaries as we do our darkest ones?
It is a profound, paradigm-shifting question to evaluate your own life against.
Thank you so much for joining us on this intensely personal, deeply illuminating deep dive. Protect your energy, take care of yourselves, and we will be right here waiting for you next time you're ready to explore something new.